everyone, welcome back. I have something a little bit different for you today. I have a review of a planner, and this is kind of an obscure one. I haven't seen many other people who regularly review planners do this one, and that might be because it was initially available as part of a Kickstarter. So until recently, you couldn't just go out and buy it. I am pretty sure it is for sale now. And I think they are also caught up on their orders, so you shouldn't have to wait too long if you want to get one of these. And this isn't sponsored at all. This is just, I really love planners, and they don't usually work for me, and I'm going to talk about why that is and why it's not really the planner's fault. But even though I know that pre-printed planners often don't work for me, I love trying them out. So this was one that I hadn't seen reviewed by many other people, and so I thought I would review it so that you guys can get a look at what's inside. The first thing you should know is that this isn't just a paper planner, but there's a whole system that's kind of connected to this planner. There is an online quiz at projectevo.org, which is who makes this. And the quiz will kind of score you on two different axes. So there's external, internal, and then abstract, concrete. And this is how you think, like what kind of planning works best for you. And then they actually have planners designed for each of the different brain types. And a lot of the pages in this are similar, but then the daily pages are different for each different brain type. So the only one I have is the architect, and I actually took the quiz multiple times with slightly different answers based on how I was feeling at the time. The first time I got alchemist, and that didn't really work for me. I forget exactly why, but I actually, when we were waiting for the Kickstarter to be fulfilled, they sent out sample sheets. So samples of the daily sheets, and I tried out the alchemist one and I didn't really like it, and so I settled on the architect, which was my second test result. So always if you take a quiz that says it will determine your personality or determine something about you that's kind of on the inside about how you think, take it with a grain of salt. Think about it. Ask yourself if it makes sense, and if there's another option, explore those options before you really dial in on one. You could also do what I did and just have a look at all the different planning spreads and pick the one that I thought I would use the most. And there is also an app which I had some trouble with. It was in beta when I got my planner, and when I started using it, the iOS app came out first and the Android one came out in beta and was not officially released until a few weeks ago, I believe. I think it was released officially either late December, early January. When I'm filming this, it's mid-January, January 17th, so it could be a lot more stable than it was. I'll definitely have a look at it again before the end of this video. I'll talk about that when I get to the dailies. So first things first, let's look at the outside of this thing. It is a very attractive planner, I think. It has this like copper foil, shiny stuff all over it. There's not really a bump, you can't really feel it, but it is very pretty to look at. And then it has the label of which planner you have, and then the branding info on the side. This is lovely, I think. Copper edge pages. So far I haven't had any of this stuff like scrape off, which I was worried about. Oh, nope, hold on. Where the bookmark goes has scraped some of the shine off there. You can see it's just white underneath. Or it might just be that the pages are kind of separated. So if we flip through this, we can see how far into it I got. And this is going to be a little misleading at first because all the monthlies and weeklies are at the beginning. this is how far into it I got total. And then of the dailies, this is how many I used. I believe, let's see, there's some note pages in the back here. And then this is the last daily. So what's that? About a quarter, maybe 20% of the way through. I did try to stick with it, but I keep trying to use these very structured planners, and I'm really just a bullet journal kind of girl, and the rigidity of this just doesn't work well with me. But I gave it a good go because I just really I like the concept, I like the companion app aspect of it, and it really is just a very nice looking planner. It does have a little band here that goes around to hold it closed, which I really like. I never notice how convenient these are, but when I have a notebook that doesn't have one, it's really very obvious to me. So now we're gonna start flipping through this. Okay, so let's actually open this up and see what's inside. I did a pen test here and then thought that this first page might be thicker than the other ones. So I do test the fountain pens on different pages as well. A little quote here: if there's nothing wrong in the world, there wouldn't be anything for us to do. George Bernard Shaw. We have the type of brain here, the brain type here, and a little QR code to get the mobile app. It says down here that the system is not complete without the app, which is kind of funny because when I got this initially there was no Android app. They focused on iOS, and so when I got it I could not actually use the app until probably a month later. This page has some credits for the team, and this is like a name, phone number, email address page. It begins now. I did another little pen test here. You can see it. It does bleed a tiny bit, and I found that certain inks worked better than others. Note about how we can use the system to accomplish things. So there's a lot in here about their system. As an architect, you love to be organized, you crave structure. That seems like me. I enjoy planning, you guys know that. I enjoy lists. I enjoy knowing what I'm gonna do and when I'm gonna do it. And this little note here says that you share some qualities with the brain type on the opposite corner to yours. They are different ends of the same spectrum. Okay, they say that this is all based on science, though I'm not sure if there's actually any like studies linked to. So they say in here that the daily pages are customized based on years of focus and productivity research. I don't know if they cite their research anywhere. I don't see it on their website like readily available, so it could be, you know, they could be making some big claims here that they're not backing up. There's some notes here about the different brain types. I'll just read the little bold bits. Alchemists gravitate towards the abstract and the theoretical. Explorers tend to prefer dealing with information that is more concrete and in the real world. Oracles gravitate towards the abstract and theoretical, but focus on developing ideas primarily in their mind and then bringing them out to share with others when they're more fully formed. Architects are linear, detailed thinkers who often identify with the idea of having a filing cabinet for a brain. I don't think that's very accurate. I liked the other description better. When I see them laid out like this, I can see why it gave me Alchemist first. I feel like there probably should be more results, because I feel like these don't really hit on all the combinations, but you know, that's me. I haven't done years of research or whatever they said they did. This page has some notes on how to connect with people of other brain types. I'm not going to read any of this. I just want to point out that these are really nicely printed. You know, there's some color on here. It was an interesting choice to do the black page with the white text, but I think it does make it a little bit more polished, and it separates these first informational pages from the usable pages. So we do have some, they kind of look like recipes. They're just little notes about the different brain types. I haven't actually read this. I must have read it when I first got the notebook, but it's been a few months. Let's see. I have high standards for my work. I enjoy stability and security. Impact. I can understand details in a clear and organized way. That all seems fine. It does list some superpowers and weaknesses. I'm not sure that all of these apply, and it does list alchemist as like the secondary type. You can pause on these if you're able to read in the video. It looks clear enough to me, but okay. And there's just a signature on that page. I don't think we need to show that to everybody. What is brain type theory? There's a note from Carl Jung. Okay, it's just more notes about how we all process information differently and need different solutions. There is a declaration of evolution. I guess that's just my name, it's not a big deal, but I don't really need to show my signature to everybody. Okay, and they actually do have sample pages at the beginning here, so all of this text you see is like printed in. I'll try to get in there. It's just some notes about how to use a calendar, which seems kind of excessive to me, but they do show these little side things like monthly focus. I'm not actually sure I filled these in. I guess we'll see when I flip through, but they have monthly focus, projects, to-do lists, and then down here we have goals and then actions to achieve the goals. I'm not sure why they didn't fill this side in. And then these are the daily sections, and up here I've done another little test, and you can probably see there's a tiny bit of bleed through, but the paper is okay. It wasn't really designed for fountain pens, so if you use fountain pens in here, it's kind of at your own risk, but most of them should be fine as long as they don't write too wet. And here we have a sample week, and we get in here a little bit. The idea is that you brain dump in these big columns, and then you fill in the specifics down below. And then at the end of the week, you review it. And I never really did these because it wasn't really part of my process to come back to this throughout the week and fill in these little notes. And because I have my bullet journal, I just make notes in there. And this is kind of the cool part. This is standardized form, kind of like a Scantron, and you score yourself in these different areas of your life, and you decide what you want to do next week to make it better, and then you hold your phone and it finds these squares and scans your answers into the app. And one little problem I ran into was sometimes these categories were not what I had scanned in. So like down here, it's hard to see. Let me find an actual weekly. So down here, that one I messed up. It has these categories, but when I scanned it in, the categories available were different. And I contacted support, and they said there are multiple versions of this planner, and the categories are different in different ones. So I don't know if they figured out that little issue, if I have an old one and the new one is different, or what happened there. Maybe you can pick which planner you have in the app. I don't know. But the weeklies work, you know, they have space to write down your to-dos, they have space for your goals, and then they have space for goals separated by category. these are what the dailies look like, and I don't really like these description pages because I feel like they're very cluttery, but if you aren't quite sure what to put in here, it might be helpful to look at the sample. But they have gratitude here, which I was using instead of my bullet journal for a while. Today I will create order and balance by, and you fill in what you want to do. Brain dump. I often did not use this space because I didn't have anything that I needed to brain dump. And then ideas. These kind of feel like they could have been the same section to me and just lumped together. This side kind of confused me because they have most important, wellness, and fun separate, and then there's another list down here. I think I would prefer one list and not these separations. And then the other thing that really tripped me up like every single day was squares on both sides. These ones are meant to write down the priority. These ones are meant to check off your task. I kept checking these off because I am used to my checkboxes being on the left of my tasks. I don't know if that's normal or if it's just a preference that I have. But I kept forgetting to even prioritize these, and then I would just fill in these bigger boxes instead of the little ones. And then they do have a time column that is kind of open. You can do durations, you can do the how long something will take. You can kind of customize this column however you want. And then the dailies, I'll show an actual daily because the sample's kind of cluttered, but it's the same thing as the weekly where you fill in how it went and then you scan it with the app, and it just imports all your stuff into the app. It looks like I did get this in October, and that's kind of why I like to use journals, so I can remember when things happened a little bit more easily. I didn't use this too heavily, but I did put some little notes in here. It looks like I got it on the 9th. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to this main calendar part. However you typically use a calendar will work in here. There was plenty of space for me. Like, I did like a tiny bit of journaling in this one, but I could fit multiple things in each of these sections, and it worked out just fine. I set these goals at the beginning of the month, and I didn't look back at them ever. So this might not be the best place for me to put my goals, and I also wasn't really on board with the categories here. I don't really set a fun goal, and I don't really set a relationship goal every month. Like, I kind of had to just come up with this just to put it in here. Because I felt like I should have all of these filled. And so since I didn't actually set goals for these, a lot of them seemed a little bit contrived, because I just had to come up with something to put in here to make it complete. And I'm the kind of person who will fill pages just so that they're filled. So that's one big reason why printed out planners don't often work for me, is because I can't just leave space empty. And so if I have a space that is not really designed in a way that works for me, I will try to use it anyway. And I did use it in November as well. And these are undated, so you write in the month and then you number them yourself. And what I did was just highlight the weekends and then put markings through the days that weren't actually part of the month. And there wasn't a monthly bookmark, there's only a week and today bookmark. So in order to mark the months, I put my little parrot stickies in here, and they're totally stickied out, so it just keeps falling off. And again, for this month, I did kind of have to really come up with things to fit these categories, and what that meant was I had to try and cram my existing goals into these categories, or I just didn't write down all the goals I had for this month, because there are only 5 slots and they all have predetermined categories. I suppose what you could do is just black these out and just use all of these for setting goals if you want, but I tend to feel like if I'm gonna buy a planner and it's gonna be my planner, I don't really want to have to make a lot of modifications to it. But I do know that there are people who really enjoy putting down stickers in planners and kind of decorating it to fit what they like. So if you want to do that and you like everything else this planner has to offer, maybe this goal system will still work for you. And it looks like December is when I kind of gave up on the Evo Planner. And another thing that I encountered was this month didn't fit in this grid because it started on a Saturday and it had 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I guess. This rarely happens, and you can see I made do by just putting my end of the month back at the beginning. I could have just chopped off the first and started on the second, and then maybe if I really needed to I could have put the first at the end. But this month I numbered and I put in meeting days and the Pokemon Go community day, and then I just didn't really do anything else. No goals, no projects. And I don't think I've mentioned, this is a quarterly planner, so the idea is that you get one of these for every quarter. They are pretty pricey. I think I got mine for around $35, but looking at the website today, January 17th, it looks like they're $45, which is more than I would spend on a planner. I guess it really depends if this layout speaks to you. It might be worth it because it is very nice. It's very attractive. The cover is like hard and durable, and I packed this around with me for a couple months and it doesn't look scuffed at all. I mean, the shine here is a little bit scuffed, but other than that, it looks almost new. So I don't know how I would feel about spending that every quarter. You decide. Like I said, this isn't sponsored. They didn't even give me this for review. I'm just doing it because I used it and I had not seen any reviews for it. And I wanted to kind of give back to the community a little bit. So here's the first weekly page I actually used. The app was not in existence at this point, so I didn't even bother filling out these. And the weeks also have these kind of predetermined goal sections, which I already said I'm not a huge fan of. Specifically, like contribution and fun. They're not really things that I plan. I don't know anyone who sits down every month and thinks about how they're gonna have fun that month, unless they're doing some kind of like intentional relaxation project or something. Certainly not every month forever or every week forever. It just seems like they're kind of boxing you in to a very specific sort of planning here, and I don't really like that. I'm just gonna flip through these kind of quick because they all look pretty much the same. Here is one week where I actually did the review. I never looked back on these, so I'm not sure if they were really helpful, and now that I'm thinking about it, if I'm filling out one of these every quarter, I mean, they're pretty beefy. If I'm using one every quarter, that's 4 every year, so that's like this much bulk of notebook. I'm probably not gonna keep these around and like archive them and then like use them later, so the review might be useful in planning my next week, but it's not really gonna be useful as a record, if that makes sense. I feel like my bullet journals capture like more of a screenshot of my life, like a thumbnail, and I can look back at them and kind of see what I was doing at the time, This is a little too structured to be a journal, and so I think they devote a little bit too much space to recording kind of what happened and what you did and how you're feeling. I should say that this looks very nice, like the gray background is just a nice soft place to do your brainstorming here. There's a little bit of color with these icons, which I like. It makes it seem very high quality to be printed in color, and it just gives you something nice to look at. And that was the last weekly I did. So gonna skip ahead to the dailies. Is this the first one? Okay. Here's my first daily. I did not use these very often, like I said, and I didn't really start using these until the app came out. You can see here I filled this in just for posterity's sake, and I also felt that this was a little bit vague to have a corresponding checkbox. Like gratitude, I just check off whether or not I was grateful for something, whether or not I got the most important thing done, whether or not I did my wellness task here, whether or not I created order and balance in my life by doing this. It's kind of vague. And then also, I was never really sure what to put here in the first place. Like here I just wrote, I'm gonna do the work I plan to do, pretty much is what this says. And I feel like I could put that down every day and it would be just as true and just as effective. Maybe the sample had something more useful in there. End work at 6, watch educational YouTube videos, dinner with friends. I don't know how having dinner with friends creates order and balance. I guess that's the balance part, by not working too much. But for me, this prompt was too vague for me to really do anything with, and then having a checkbox for it seemed even stranger. And then the monthly ritual. Let's go back to the month here. On this page, there is nothing about a ritual anywhere, and so that was pretty confusing for me. I found out later that the app, and you can see here it's divided with the word app, and the app is where you set your monthly ritual. I would have liked a place for it in the planner. I don't know why they decided to separate it, but this was pretty confusing for me early on. And then we have this biggest takeaway, win, lesson, experience, or discovery. And a lot of the time I felt like what I had to write down could fit in multiple categories. If you fill in multiple categories, I think it would crash the app. Like a lesson and an experience could be the same. An experience and a discovery could be the same. A win and an experience, or maybe the lesson and the discovery. You discovered something and it taught you a lesson. I don't know. The scoring system, if I was designing a scoring system, I would have something related to the tasks you planned versus the task you completed. And then I would also have some kind of mood tracking, is how I would do it. And additionally, this text does not get scanned in. So this entire section here doesn't really need to be in the scanning app section unless they've changed it, which I will find out once I dig back into it in a little bit. And here you can see I even wrote in oops, because I was using the priority section as a checkbox section. I did really appreciate the solid gratitude section. I do think that really thinking about gratitude is how you get the benefit from it in the mornings. Like if you think, what am I grateful for? Coffee, sleep, fresh air, you know, if you just have a little tiny section, there's not a lot of time for you to consider it and really have it affect your mood. And so even when I have these simple, like, cheese, it's tasty, that's all I really have to say about it. Um, Even just this extended little piece, it gives me the time to think about it. Let's see if I have something more substantial. I am grateful for my career and the skill set I have honed. I feel strong and capable, like I can do anything I want. Like, having the ability to set this down on the paper in the morning before I do my planning, it just starts things off on a good note. And I don't know if you can see, on this page I had, let's get that focused, I had filled in these initially with this brown color, and it wasn't dark enough. The app would not pick it up, so I had to color over them with black. So just be aware that these are really like Scantrons. You have to fill them in completely, and it has to be dark and, you know, very clean fill, or the app won't know what to do with it. And you can see here, I did sometimes go several days without doing any planning in here. Here's one day where I actually got the correct boxes filled in, and the Noodler's Apache Sunset, you can see, bled through pretty bad. Another page where I had tried to fill in these circles and it didn't work. And there was actually an entire week where I couldn't get the scanning to work at all, regardless of what I filled the circles with, and that was addressed. It does work now. Very rarely I would actually use the brain dump section if I actually had just random thoughts I needed to jot down, but most of the time they were just left blank. Overall, all of the pen that I'm seeing in here has been fountain pen, so for the most part the paper is pretty good for fountain pen. You can even see there's a bit of shading here. If I can get this to focus, my autofocus is being a little bit finicky today. This, I believe, was Diamine Autumn Oak. There is a little bit of bleed through from the other page, but overall, not too bad. You could use a fountain pen in here if you really want to, and I really wanted to, so I used it throughout the entire thing. Okay, so it looks like I did use this a little bit into December, but not very far. I didn't date this one, but I think I inked up this orange color around the 12th. So about halfway through December is when I finally gave up on the Evo Planner. And now that I'm thinking about it, that was about the time I started my vacation from my day job, so I probably just didn't have the right routine built up around the Evo Planner, and I just went back to my comfortable bullet journal. Just to give you a better look, I'll open up to some nice blank pages so you can see what a fresh, clean slate looks like. That's pretty much it. Now I'm going to talk about the app that accompanies this journal. It's just called the Evo app, and you can get it on both Google Play and the App Store. And this is a look at the app before you've really put any information into it. There are various settings that you can set, such as name, gender, date of birth. You can change your ritual in the settings, which is essentially a habit tracker, but you can only track one habit per month. I've put in here daily writing. You can make it as specific or as vague as you wish. You can also change your brain type in the app, though of course you still have whichever planner you got, so this really is only helpful the first time you start using it to make sure you have the correct one selected. Each of the sections has a question mark button that you can click, and it will tell you some information on what that chart is representing. This one's for the ritual, and it just talks about what the ritual is and how to set a good one. And each of these charts has a variety of date ranges you can select. I'm just going to select all time so you can see the data that it had collected before I stopped using it. This first one just shows that I didn't really do much work on Friday or Saturdays that I recorded, and it kind of gives you an overview of which days of the week are the most productive for you. The next section, Evo Life Score, is, I forget the right word for this little chart, but it shows how much in each area you are completing your goals consistently. And that really only works if you use the goals as they have determined them for you. Gratitude is kind of interesting because it only tracks the days you've actually recorded. So if you don't record days that you don't use, your scores can look pretty good. And I kind of wish that they had consolidated these charts a little bit more because they look like they're all giving information that could have been in one place. It's a lot of space for each individual section and a lot of scrolling for not, in my opinion, not very much information. So overall, the app still feels very bare bones to me. I think that they could have done a lot more with the data that they're collecting, but that could just be my nerdy data scientist heart wishing that everything was as flexible as a spreadsheet. I didn't have any days to scan in, but when you hit that button at the bottom, Plan and Scan, you'll select whether you're scanning a daily or a weekly, and then you just hold your camera up to the page, preferably in a well-lit area with the phone completely horizontal so the page appears very square, and it should just pick it right up. When it was working for me, it was very reliable. To summarize my thoughts about the Evo Planner, I like the planner, but for a multitude of reasons it did not work for me. I'm questioning if the price is too high. I'm a little bit torn because the quality of this is very nice. It's very nice to look at, like I've mentioned multiple times. But I have to ask, is that enough to spend almost $50 on a planner that's only going to last a quarter? I think it would be too much for me to commit to long term. I did get this from the Kickstarter and it was a little bit cheaper because of the Kickstarter. And so I'm not sure I would have bought this if that's how much it was when I looked at it. But if you look at this system as a whole, they are offering quite a bit of value here because you can track your progress through multiple notebooks through the app, which stays with you all the time. So you wouldn't necessarily have to keep these for reference because you could look at everything you've done in the past year just in the app. So I hope that gave you a good look at the Evo Planner. You can decide if this is something that you want to get for yourself. If you have any questions about it that I would be able to answer, please leave them down below. I do have this at my disposal to flip through and figure out if you have any specific questions. Thank you so much for watching. I don't usually do reviews, but I hope that this was informative and I hope that you enjoyed it. I'll be back soon with your regularly scheduled journaling and art content, and I hope to see you there. Thanks again. Bye.